And in this episode of WQA Radio, we're going to be talking about professional certification. And we are glad to welcome Luke Timmons to the program. Luke is a master water specialist who's gone through the professional certification program here at WQA. He's Director of Business Development for Penguin Water, based in Indianapolis. Luke, welcome to the program. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
We're also joined
to help out the WQA. We'd love to do it. Excuse me.
Yeah, great. And we're also joined by Tanya Lubner, PhD and Director of the Professional Certification and Training Department at WQA. Tanya, always glad to have you.
Glad to be here, Wes. Thank you.
Luke, we wanted to talk with you because you're kind of unique these days. You had a CWS, Certified Water Specialist certification for some time, and then you decided, I don't want to say late in career, but maybe mid-career, you decided a Master Water Specialist was something to aspire to. We want to talk about that, but let's begin with something, a little bit more basic, and that is you and your company. What do you do, and what kinds of things do you offer your customers?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a third generation guy. My grandfather started in the water treatment industry back in like the late 40s and early 50s. So it was kind of destiny. My uncle owns U.S. Water Systems, which is the parent company for Penguin Water Systems. And U.S. Water Systems is a direct-to-consumer water treatment, all American-made products, but it's mostly centered around DIY for people who, feel like they can handle installing water treatment equipment themselves, and we support them through that process. And then about in the last 3 years, we've stood up a wholesale division that is specifically designed for plumbers, service professionals, contractors, really taking advantage of, the value proposition of the customer, being in the customer's home, having someone who's, the customer trusts, and, for all their water needs, also offer water treatment. And it's been really successful so far. It's been a lot of fun. We do a lot of training. So I'd say about 80% of my job is actually training, as opposed to sales, which a lot of my previous career had been, centered on. But yeah, that's pretty much in a nutshell. We sell to plumbers, service professionals, contractors, builders, anybody who wants to break into the water treatment, industry.
And was that something that came out of COVID or the pandemic?
No, I'd say that, we were actually, knock on wood, pretty unaffected by COVID, just by the nature of the business. People still, had to get their water treated, and they could still get online. So U.S. Water was pretty good. But really what it stemmed from was requests of people who wanted to, carry our equipment. But it's a little difficult sometimes to resell equipment when all the prices are available online. That value proposition is really hard to explain to customers as far as, professional installation guarantees on the plumbing and all that stuff. So we decided to split those brands about 3 years ago and offer two different product lines. So it worked out really good for, deconflicting those sales channels, but it also fulfilled a need that we were seeing a lot of requests for. So it's overall been a great launch. Been almost a little over 3 years now. I actually just came on at the beginning of January. I've worked here several times in the past. It's a family company. I helped them when they started 20 years ago out of the garage. So in the morning, I would dress up with the nice clothes, and I'd go sell water softeners, and then in the evening I'd change clothes and go install them. So I've the whole value chain. I've pretty much touched it all. So it was pretty easy to just walk back into the the same kind of things.
Amazing story. Tanya.
Yeah, so Luke, you've been around with professional certification for quite a while. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what impact you think professional certification has on the industry.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I've seen it firsthand in the residential markets where it adds a lot of credibility, but I've also seen it in other water related industries where there's a void of the WQA. So I'm actually pretty well pretty well equipped to make that contrast. It's a big difference. It lends credibility. It creates competition or I shouldn't say competition. It creates motivation for people to elevate their understanding of water, and as well as if you're competing against somebody that has 10 certified water specialists or 10 master water specialists, and you don't have any, the customer is going to look at that because that's all readily available, and it's going to put you at a disadvantage if you happen to find yourself in the company without the certified water specialist. We see that a lot within the market. As a matter of fact, the WQA just came in to one of our training sessions and highlighted some of the ways that they can capitalize on those kind of situations by becoming members and becoming certified. And I think that just in the 20 or 30 guys that we were training at the time, they were all like, "Yeah, this has happened to us." Where we see people who are certified getting the close, as opposed to maybe not as good of a close ratio with the uncertified professionals. So we definitely encourage that, but I'd say that's one pretty blaring example of what I've seen in my industry.
Yeah, and I was wondering, in talking with you, you are very knowledgeable about the water chemistry and such. Did you have a degree in chemistry, or did you pick it up along the way?
No, I'm organized, and structured learning has never been my stronghold. I'm more of an on my own kind of guy. In 2023, you can find anything if you just look hard enough. You can educate yourself pretty easily. But my experience actually started when I was, I think, 13, getting ready to be 14. I worked at a pretty large franchise I think a lot of us have heard about in the Midwest. But I started, my dad worked there. He was the general manager of that store. And during the summers, I was cheap labor to rebuild rental units and reverse osmosis systems. But I'm not too upset about it because it gave me a lot of experience, hands-on, to learn how these things work firsthand. And that's really how it started. And then for the first part of my career, from probably, I don't know, whenever I was allowed to work till about 21, I worked at the family company, U.S. Water. But I took a quick break to go join the military. I felt the patriotic call, and no civilian related equivalency. I was infantry. I was to close with and destroy the enemies of the United States in close combat, and we did that it's been 25 months in Afghanistan. And I got out, and I don't know if it was the rebellious stage in my life or not, but I decided I was going to get away from water. I've been doing water too long, but as destiny has it, I gravitated right back, ended up as commercial sales at U.S. Water again, within about 8 months of getting out of the Army. I think that's when I decided, I believe it was 2011, late 2011 or early 2012, when I first got my certified water specialist certification. So that's kind of how it started. But like I said, I'm a pretty big nerd, so I read a lot. And that's the majority of my knowledge either come from hands-on, being in the factory working on the stuff, being in the customer's customer's location working on the stuff. So it's a lot of hands-on, a lot of reading, and a lot of experience that my knowledge base comes from.
Well, thanks for your military service, by the way. But in addition to what you just said in terms of being able to find information on the web and doing searches and whatnot, contrast that with what professional training at WQA, the certification program, CWS, and now MWS has offered.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there doesn't exist a centralized database of information like the WQ has. There's stuff out there, but it's not close to what they've created. And because of that, I kind of procrastinated from that 2012 to just recently here when I decided to do the MWS course in certification. And in between that time, I probably should have worked a little harder to move towards that objective. But when I finally did decide to do it, it was incredibly, I shouldn't say easy, it was convenient not easy because it wasn't easy. It was convenient to find everything that I needed to kind of polish up on before the test. So I would say, one of the most glaring benefits would just be the central database that it covers everything that, most people are going to touch in their career. It gives you exactly what you need and exactly what you need to not just pass the test, right? Because that's neither here nor there, but actually learn, understand, and then be able to apply it in the real world. Nobody does that like WQA. And as well as like, not everybody is necessarily starts out with the skills and the discipline to learn things themselves and go out and find the right answer and to even validate and vet to make sure that that information that you're getting is correct and applicable to, not even to start talking about, um, regulations, things like that. So the WQA does a really great job of making that information available, making sure it's accurate, and making sure that everybody's following the regulations, the rules, the laws, and everything else around it. And that's really important. And then I don't want to overstate, in a lot of the penguin water business, we have a lot of competition with other different dealers and a lot of different other companies that offer a lot of the same products. And you can definitely always tell, whether through pricing or marketing or however, who's following ethical approaches. And that's probably one of the most profound things that really adds credibility to the certification program as a whole, is the WQA makes sure that the ethics are a priority. And that's huge, because with your brand value, whatever your company is, with your reputation with your customers, you're not gonna build that, you're gonna build that reputation in your industry without the ethics to do the right thing. And that's something that's really important to them, and they make sure that all of us are tracking.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. The code of ethics, that there's a module training portion of the program is about ethics. And then we have, as a member of WQA, you agree to uphold the code of ethics. And so that's very important as well, as we build trust with the customer and with the consumer and the public. And so I'm glad you brought that up. Tanya, anything further?
Well, was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the exam process, just getting ready. You know, how did that feel? How'd that go?
It was really smooth. I hadn't planned to take it for very long. I'd actually had a conversation with Tanya at the last.
All right, other than my nagging,
Well, I wouldn't say it was nagging as much as pointed motivation. We'll call it that. But I decided right then and there. I was like, all right, I'll do it within 30 days, right? Because I don't have an excuse to wait any longer. So at that point, I got with Daniel LeBlanc from the Professional Education Program, and he got me the study guide. I literally, a couple nights when I'd have some time, I would go through and just knock them out one by one. I usually take notes. Writing down things makes it stick in my brain more. So I have a stack of notebook paper about an inch thick of just going through, taking the notes. And I went through once. It's not going to be that easy for everybody. You might have to go through it a couple times, especially if you're, if you haven't had as much experience as I have. But one good go through with taking notes, and I was ready to take the test. I didn't get a perfect score or anything, but I passed it. So it was, to answer your question, it was really straightforward. It was intuitive. I could navigate the database easy, and it had everything I needed to get ready.
Well, that's good to hear. Yeah, and we are offering exams online these days. We hear from a lot of people who knew the previous process where you had to get a proctor, you have to do something off-site. I think with the online testing, it just makes it so much more convenient. You just need to have a nice quiet space, no books or papers around, and be willing to be recorded as you're taking the exam.
Yeah, it's really important to lock the door as well.
That too.
You have people coming in not knowing what's going on, but anyway, yeah, lock the door.
Yeah. Yeah, we get the proctoring service that we use is they review the recording, and then we get all the red flags that Daniel then has to sift through to see if it's really anything that's problematic. Yep.
I'm sure I had a few red flags, but I hope they were all acceptable.
Well, Tanya, Luke mentioned, his extensive experience that obviously gave him a good foundation from which to build and then take the MWS exam. But for anyone just maybe, new to the industry or early in the industry, we do have live instructor-led training as well. I want to touch on that. I don't want to
Mhm.
miss that opportunity to let people know that that's out there. Now, it's not done every day, but it is an option.
Yeah, experience, I will say, is incredibly important because you learn from your mistakes and it gives you an opportunity to learn from your mistakes. What we're trying to accomplish with the instructor-led training is have you learn from somebody else's mistakes, which we think is a little less expensive. Not only that, but it goes faster because when you're out there making your own mistakes, you don't know yet what those mistakes will be. The instructors, they have lots and lots of experience in the field. They know exactly what those mistakes are going to be, and they will teach you to avoid it. So it shortens that time, but it does. We've noticed that people who are actively working in the industry and are able to apply the concepts that they're taught on, at least a weekly basis, it sticks better. Yeah, but we do have those instructor-led classes. We have them for an hour a week to try and fit it into people's busy schedules. There's a little bit of homework that goes with it that helps reinforce what was brought up in class. But I think it's a good way for someone who's already working full-time. I think it's a good way for them to take the next step to broaden their education.
Yeah, and obviously, Luke, this does take time. It didn't take as much time for you. Again, you're maybe not the greatest example because you have that background we talked about. But to somebody here kind of weighing, well, I guess I could maybe go for a certification. What would you do again to encourage somebody to consider
I've got a
that?
perfect example.
Okay.
One of my account managers at Penguin Water, he has a degree in unmanned systems and aviation management, right? And he was a family friend, and came on, started his way in the warehouse, and eventually made it to Penguin account management. Well, he didn't really have much experience in water treatment, besides the little bit of building some RO systems and things in the warehouse. And when I came in January, I made it kind of my pet project to make sure that he started down that road of getting certified. And so I think last month he did his CWR, so he got his Certified Water Representative certification. And then actually, when the WQA was in town yesterday, we got him signed up to do the instructor-led CWS progression as well. And I would say that the best way to do that, at least in a relationship with two guys, is you just gotta motivate them by kind of daring them to try to be better, right? There's all kinds of things you can do in this industry to get better, but I think that the three little letters after our name, especially amongst professionals, is kind of how we sum each other up, and we kind of assess our cohorts, compadres, and competition for that matter. And so it's the standard. It's easy to motivate within that environment by it's making it expected, right? Making it expected is probably the best thing you could do. It's like, why haven't you yet? And not all motivation methods work for all people, but finding out what's important to that person, what they're interested in, and then finding some relative things to get them excited about it. It all relates to their job usually, in any of our businesses. There's usually something that relates to their job that they can find in the certification. So it's finding what that person what motivates that person, and then showing them how to complete those goals and get what they want.
Yeah, motivation is definitely key, and there are a number of different strategies that are used by employers, regardless of whether it's WQA certification or other industries. But yeah, it's definitely you need to find what that key is. But we were talking earlier about kind of having a level playing field for the customer. In other words, you have WQA members who signed off on the code of ethics, or certified personnel who've done the same, competing against each other. It's better for the customer. I've heard a number of certified personnel said that in competitive situation, they would much rather be up against another certified person, because at least then they know that they're both telling the customer the same thing. They're not confusing them and completely souring them on the industry.
Well, this has been great. Luke, we're so glad that you have now your Master Water Specialist certification. We are glad that you are continuing to promote that to others, such as those on your team, and obviously your new business model. It sounds fascinating. So I think you're struck on something that is valuable to the industry. So on all of those points and more, we congratulate you and thank you for joining us. Tanya, anything further?
No, that's it. Thank you.
All right, Luke, take care. We'll see you around.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Keep up the good work, guys.
All right. Thanks so much, Luke.